Namaskar dosto, konnichiwa minasama, sawadee tokhun. We are going to do a Shuddh Desi review of the Thai horror BL series khemjira.
तो जी 3 किस्म के जीरा आलू या 3 किस्म के सूखे आलू बनाने के लिए आपको चाहिए आलू, जीरा। अभी देखिए यहाँ जादू से सारे इंग्रेडिएंट्स आ जाएंगे। तो हींग जीरे के आलू के लिए आपको चाहिए हींग, लाल मिर्च, जीरा, मेथी दाना, काली मिर्च और चॉप किया हुआ धनिए की डंडी। क्या है ना कि तड़के के लिए सब आप तैयारी कर लें, इसलिए हमने कहा रुक के एक बार फिर से बता देते हैं। सबसे पहले तेल में थोड़ी सी मेथी, बस 2-3 दाने, फिर जीरा।
Khemjira. Now, khemjira is better than this anime called The Summer Hikaru Died. So, I would like to prove this point before we get into the Shuddh Desi review of khemjira. Now, I know it's not an even playing field because we are comparing an anime to a show, but I think it makes for a fair comparison because both of these shows released in 2025, and 2025 was kind enough to give us not one but two horror BL series, which is a rarity in itself. So I would like to take some time in appreciating that. And why I say khemjira is better than Summer Hikaru Died is because khemjira has meticulous world building. Now I know it's not fair because it is very tough to make a 2D drawing look very scary, and while the Summer Hikaru Died has some masterclass direction, I think khemjira was directed better because the jump scares and the spooky moments in khemjira actually work and they kind of lock you in. Now, The Summer Hikaru Died has an interesting premise, but where Summer Hikaru Died really works for me is in terms of character writing. You see Yoshiki dealing with the grief, but at the same time, he needs to accept that this new Hikaru is Nonoki-sama and is possibly evil, and he is ready to sacrifice himself for this new Hikaru. And you see Hikaru's friend kind of breaking down in tears when she finds out that this creature is inside Hikaru and the real Hikaru actually died 7 days ago when he went missing in the mountains. And that makes for a very beautiful scene. Plus, the beach scene was pretty wholesome. And according to the blind guy, the creature inside Hikaru was not this creature called Nonoki sama, it was something else. But the Summer Hikaru Died does not provide us an explanation about Nonoki sama or why the villagers choose to worship Nonoki sama or fear Nonoki sama so much, and what this blind guy's actual deal is. So, on that aspect, khemjira wins because it's a complete story and it provides this sense of closure, and you are more invested in this BL couple, which the Summer Hikaru Died provides snippets of. And I also think that horror in anime is a very tough genre to pull off. Now, when I'm talking about horror, keep in mind that I am talking about horror involving ghosts only. I'm not talking about psychological horror. There are many good psychologically horrific anime and manga out there, but horror anime involving ghosts are just not that scary, at least according to me. And the only scary manga involving ghosts that gave me chills was this radio frequency manga that has no coherent order in which the story is written. And apparently, it gave me chills because the author himself had to stop writing the manga because he experienced paranormal stuff, and some of the panels are genuinely very creepy to look at. And it is very subjective, like what might be scary for you might not be scary for me. Like, I personally do not enjoy Junji Ito mangas, okay? I just think that they are pretty pointless. Like, sue me all you want, but Junji Ito's manga mainly depends on shock value and body horror. And when you have read so much of forensics and watched so much of gore, I don't think body horror matters anymore. And in Junji Ito, you just have the curse that exists, the build up, but no payoff. Like, I want to see the consequences that the characters are going through. And if you take Uzumaki, for example, it carries a slice of life tone. Like, people have just accepted that others turning into spiral stuff is kind of normal. Uzumaki really shines in the end, but you also have characters making dumb choices in Uzumaki, like Shuichi. My guy, you could leave the town at any time and you had the choice to do so. But instead, you chose to stay with Kanae, who is literally like the most irrational person in the manga, and you realize that this story was kind of doomed from the start because you know nothing about the spiral curse. Even at the end of the story, you just know that okay, this spiral curse kind of annihilates an entire village and just waits for a new population to set in, and then it annihilates the entire village again. So basically, you started from square zero and you are back to square zero again, except that you kind of just witnessed chaos and carnage all over, and you just don't know what you're battling up against, Final Destination style. So I just think that the last few chapters of Uzumaki were pretty great because you feel like everybody is kind of in danger, but the first few volumes of Uzumaki that take a slice of life tone were utter trash. The same can be said about Tomie because the story of Tomie just doesn't make sense to me. Like, sure, you have shown us who Tomie is and you have shown us what she can do. Like, people just cut her into pieces and then they mistreat her and then they again cut her into pieces and then they actually get traumatized by Tomie, but you never show us why that's the case and what are the consequences to it. But at least Tomie provides a decent conclusion, so I'll give it a pass. And other one-shot mangas of Junji Ito never worked for me because again it's just the build up and not the payoff. And don't even get me started on the anime because the anime has some of the atrocious voice acting performances I've ever seen. Okay, like my eardrums suffered a huge perforation and I couldn't hear for a week straight after watching Junji Ito's anime. So based on that, I just think that anime cannot be that good in horror, and the only exception I can come across is Mononoke because Mononoke, while not spooky, is pretty interesting because it is fun to see Kusuriri explore the backstory of the ghost and actually annihilate the ghost because the backstory of the ghost plays into the exorcist weapon and it just helps him annihilate the ghost, and it also shows the consequences of the said curse that is being implied on the people in this anime. So while I'm done with this rant, let's level up the playing field and compare Khemjira with Bulbul. I think Khemjira is better than Bulbul, and it is at the same level of Stree 2 or Stree or even the Madak horror universe. And if Khemjira had been a little tight with its screenplay, it would have been the same as Brahma Yugam or Deus Irae. And don't even get me started on Tumbad. Guys, Tumbad is one of those movies which set a gold standard for horror. So, Tumbad is beyond comparison here, and it is easily one of the best horror fantasy movies to ever exist. And in terms of the common horror trope of giving the ghost or the spirit a backstory, Khemjira does nothing new with it. Like, we know that the ghost was kind of traumatized in the past and thus is sticking around to take revenge. But Khemjira excels at making it very impactful and making you empathize with the ghost and understanding the reason for why the spirit is very vengeful, but it also makes you root for the protagonists more. And Khemjira also has very decent VFX and CGI. And I'm saying this after watching shows like Nagin or Chandrakanta or Hatim, where I literally went blind for a week. So the VFX in Khemjira kind of work for this world, and the same thing can be said about the soundtrack. Now, I'm not saying that Khemjira is as scary as Insidious, it's not, but I just think that it is entertaining and it is better than the normal Conjuring movies, nonetheless. So, if you guys don't know, Khemjira revolves around our protagonist, Khemjira, who is born in this cursed family where a female child can just live her life but dies a torturous death. But if you are born a guy in Kem's family, then you get to live at the ripe age of 21 before you are brutally killed by a spirit. And obviously, none of them know who is causing these deaths and why do the guys die at the ripe age of 21. So Kem has to go to this shaman who kind of puts a protective spell on him because he has been seeing ghosts, and his mother kind of dies when he is still a kid and his father becomes a monk. Now Kem, despite all of this, manages to join college. Which college? Arts college. Because खेम के बाप ने बोला कि अगर तू 21 पे मरने ही वाला है तो आर्ट्स ही कर लेता. And following passion, Kem kind of enjoys drawing and everything, so he is there with his best friend Jet. Now, Jet is the disciple of a shaman who is the grandson of the shaman who helped Kem in the beginning of the story. And this is the shaman in question. भाई अगर ये मेरा शमन होता तो मैं अपने गांव में रोज भूत बुला लेती और मैं अपना जीवन भूत बंगले में ही गुजारती. However, the shaman is played by King Harit. Now, many people choose to become ghosts after they die, but King Harit is just like, no, no, I know I died in Paradise of Thorns, but let's just become a shaman and choose to help people here, which I really appreciate. So, King Harith looks like $1 million in this show, and I really couldn't take my eyes off of him. And he is one of the standout performers right after Ramfung. Now, Ramfung is this malevolent spirit who has been traumatizing Kem since childhood, and she is responsible for the curse on Kem's family. And we find that out in like episode 3 or 4 when Kem finds out that he has a protective spirit named Wat, and we also find out that Kem and Shaman Faran have a pichale janam ka vasta, and we also find out that Kem and Wat also have a pichale janam ka vasta, and Kem's best friend Jet and Sharn also have a pichale janam ka vasta, and then Kem and Ramfung have a janmo ka vasta, and then there is also a character who is a local guardian spirit named Ananta Nagaraja. Again, bonus points for Khemjira for including Indian references. So we find out that Ananta Nagaraj and Haran Shaman have a sadiyo ka vasata. Now, I would have nitpicked on this and I would have been like, oh my god, Khemjira relies too much on previous births, but we got this ethereal beauty. So I have nothing to complain about. And we also find out about Ramfung's backstory from episode 9. Now, Khemjira kind of gets boring in the first 8 episodes because it takes time for establishing its world, and it also takes time to set up its characters and cook up the story and to make you familiar with how the world works in Khemjira and who are the spirits and how the exorcism works and how the elders see the shaman and why the shaman is so powerful and how the shaman eventually gets convinced to help Kem, even though he made a promise to his grandfather that he will only practice white magic and will not practice black magic again. And you also have an angle with Kem's mother who kind of stays over to protect him from Wat, who kind of attacks Kem, and she is just like, listen, I will always be watching over you, but I don't have the energy to actually manifest myself in front of you that often. So that makes for a very sweet moment. Khemjira also has lovable characters like the Summer Hikaru died. Like, Kem is such a lovable protagonist. He doesn't make dumb decisions like the horror movie characters, aside from 1 or 2 decisions on Kem's part. I think Kem is kind and empathetic, and he just really cares about the people around him and will stop at nothing to just fight for the greater good, even if it means sacrificing himself, which makes him the perfect love interest for Paran. And whoever cast Chemica needs a raise, because these two just look shockingly similar, at least in the first glance. And we also see that Kim and Kang have very good chemistry, so it makes for funny moments in episode 4. And I don't blame Kim for being the way he is, because if you know that you are about to die, you might as well just have fun and make the most of it. So I just think that it was good to include some comedy, and the hot and cold relationship between Kim and Master was kind of necessary, because it also develops the character of the Master. And bonus points for adding these two adorable cutie patooties who just light up the screen with their presence. Like, oh my god. Okay, right after Tanjiro and other shonen protagonists who I want to adopt, these two kids are on my adoption list. However, in episode 9, one of these kids die, and it just makes for a very sad scene. Like, Ramfong didn't need to do that. She could have just swatted away this kid or something and could have just been strangling with Kim, but no, she just chose to strangle this kid instead. And if you're asking what happens in the first 8 episodes of Khemjira, pure bakchodi, guys. But in that bakchodi, you kind of get introduced to different spirits, and you also kind of get to know how each character works and how each character is kind of integral to the story, and it really pays off in the end. Now, episodes 9 to 12 of Khemjira are the best episodes of the series. Apart from watching Dhurandhar 2, watching episodes 9 to 12 of Khemjira makes the best 4 hours of your life. Now, I love how Kem actually uses his powers to see the ghost to help people in the first episode, and he chooses not to be scared of the ghost and realizes in a Judy style fashion that some ghosts are good and some ghosts are bad. And in episode 9, we find out why Ramsung is so adamant on taking Kim's life. We find out that way back in 17th century, when Ramfung was still alive, she used to be the mistress of this king who was an ancestor of Kim. And so this king had a wife who couldn't give him a son, and he kind of impregnated Ramfung. Now, Ramfung also had a son, and Ramfung's son turned out to be healthy, while the queen's son turned out to be dead, and she was dealing with her third miscarriage. So obviously this makes Ramfong very scared. Now, some of the king's aides are just like, okay, we will help you, Ramfong, we will help you escape. And obviously Ramfong kind of tries to escape, but she is caught by the king's wife. And so she is just like, listen, I don't mean any harm to you and the king. I will keep my identity as a servant, and I will also raise my son my own way. You have nothing to do with this. And the king's wife is just like, yeah, no, I am not buying this. And she kind of looks at Ramfung's son, and she throws the kid in the water. What a merciless bitch. So obviously Ramfung was kicking and screaming, and she is totally heartbroken by all of this, and she is dragged into the king's court, and everybody kind of testifies against her because the king's wife blackmailed them to do so. So Ramfung, in a fit of rage, curses all of them, and she is just like, listen, as I'm being flogged to death, all of you guys will suffer, and I will haunt every generation. And if you guys are born as girls, then I will just traumatize you. But if you're born as guys, then you will die at the age of 21, and I will stop at nothing to make that possible. So obviously Ramfung has traumatized Chemica and everyone else, and now she is out to get Kem. So Kem feels bad for what happened to Ramfung, but he is just like, listen, Ramfung, I had nothing to do with this and it was generations ago, so you need to let it go. And Ramfong is just like, no, maybe killing you will complete my quest for revenge. So obviously, Kem makes this stupid decision to leave Master Farhan and go to Bangkok, back to his dorm, so that he can wait it out till he becomes 21 and see Ramfung leave him alone, because if Ramfung breaks the vow, then she will just be summoned by the higher ups and will be annihilated. And I think this is stupid because Paran exclusively tells Kem that, listen, Kem, I have nobody left. Okay, everyone I know is dead. So please, please stay with me. And Kem kind of stays with him, but he is just like, listen, I've only bought pain because those two adorable kids kind of went away. And also, this grandma you were really attached to kind of died. And Paran is just like, listen, grandma died because of heart failure. And also, these two kids are bound to me because I have been keeping them with me and preventing them from taking rebirth. So obviously, it was their time to go and it had nothing to do with you. And Kem should have just believed that, okay? Because when an ethereal beauty like King Harith asks you to stay, you stay, okay? But Namping is just like, no, no, I am pretty immune to this. So he takes Jet and Shine and he leaves for Bangkok. And the plan these people come up with is pretty stupid because they were just like, hey, we should just leave Paran, who is literally the strongest amongst all of us in the village, and deal with Nampong ourselves. Okay, like why? Okay, now, Farhan exclusively said that Naphung has 400 years of training and she might be stronger than ever, and him being the shaman himself, the most powerful one, cannot stop her. But the best they can do is just stall her, and Namfong already knows what Kem and the others are doing, and she has been on Kem's mind this whole time. And Kem, like an idiot, refuses to tell this to his friends who are fighting tooth and nail to actually protect Kem at any cost, okay? And later, stupid decision number two comes when these people automatically assume that when the clock strikes 12, Kem turns 21 and Namfung just leaves Kem alone. And I don't know why these people make that assumption, because Namfung never stated the time in her vow as she was being flogged to death, okay? And that's what happens in the finale. Namfung is just like, you stupid fucks, I never stated the time, and Kim was actually born at 6 o'clock in the morning, so obviously we have 6 more hours of this, so this stalling technique was kind of stupid. But don't worry guys, everything gets resolved in the climax and provides for a very wholesome ending. But honestly, them making this wild assumption was also very stupid. And stupid decision number 3 was entirely on Kem's part, because he couldn't recognize Grandma's behavior being weird in episode 8. Like, Kem should have been able to tell this immediately. He would have just been like, hey, why is Grandma behaving so strangely? And he should have just refused to follow Grandma to the woods, and he should have suspected that Grandma might be up to something and she is actually possessed by Namfong. Now, I think that Jet and Chan have zero to no chemistry. They are pretty boring as a couple, even though they have a Pichale Janam Ka Vasta card. And I think it mainly depends upon Chan's acting. Like, Chan cannot act according to me, and even in scenes that requires him to be afraid or to shout, he just doesn't live up to the mark. But hey, I think that's a subjective opinion. Do let me know what you think about this if you've watched the show. Now, what adds bonus points to Khemjira after the Indian references and the two adorable kids is Netsurapop. Yes, guys, I did not expect Netsurapop as a Kachan, okay? Although I think Bakugo is more suited for Kachan, Netsurapop works, and I think he had the time of his life playing this role, because the last time I'd seen Netsurapop so happy was in Bed Friends, and my guy just deserves love, okay? So Netsurapop kind of helps these people to run away from the ghost, and also these people become successful in baiting Namfong. Now, Master kind of gets a vision about Kem's death and learns that Kem has been traumatized by Ramphong this past week leading up to his birthday, and he is actually going to jump from the terrace and unalive himself on his 21st birthday. And this vision is sent to him by the local deity Anantanagaraja, who he had a Sadhyoka Vasita with. So Anantanagaraja is just like, listen, I'm just repaying this old debt, and I am going to give you a Nagin style sword, which is definitely not from Ekta Kapoor, and it works better than Ekta Kapoor's swords. So obviously, Kang Harith kind of accepts it, and he is just like, thank you for all your help. And then he just leaves for Bangkok to look after Kem. And there we see Kem getting a dream where Ramphong is just like, listen, you could kill yourself right now by hanging from this branch, or you could just choose the tough way out and wait it out till your 21st birthday where I will kill you myself. And Kem was about to hang himself when King Harith comes and stops him and is just like, listen, if you have lost the will to live, then at least live for me, live for your friends, live for your parents. They wouldn't have wanted this for you. And obviously, Kem gets the motivation to live and he rejects Ramphong and he is just like, listen, man, you are not Freddy Krueger. And he just kicks Namphong out of his dream. And Namphong is just like, listen, you will pay for this. And Ramphong is just like, listen, this monkey you bought way back in episode 8 is pretty dedicated because he has constructed a Brahmastra level shield around Kang. But I think that it's not going to hold out for so long. So she summons an army of dead spirits to go up against Shaman Paran. Now, Shaman Paran is literally struggling, and Kem is just like, listen, I cannot handle this anymore. So he tries to step out, but the monk is just like, listen, Kem, you need to believe in Shaman Paran. And obviously, Kem is just like, okay, fine. So he kind of steps into the circle, and later he couldn't see Shaman Paran just exhaust his power because Shaman Paran had already used the Nagin sword and had already annihilated all of Nampong's servants. Now, that Nagin sword was not made by a mortal, so obviously it took a toll on Shaman Paran's body, and Shaman Paran kind of lost his powers temporarily, which means he is vulnerable to Nampong and he cannot cast any spells whatsoever. So Kem is just like, listen, there is no way out. So he steps out of the Brahmastra shield and he is just like, listen, Namphong, I have watched as people died on behalf of me, and it kills me that I did nothing in my past life, so I cannot do this now. If you want, you have to just kill me. And before Kem steps out, the monk is just like, listen, I know I'm an NPC, but hey, Namphong, what do you really want? And Ramphong is just like, bro, I just want Kem's life. And the monk is just like, are you sure this is what you want? And Ramphong is just like, hey, we've been over this for 5 episodes. I am pretty sure I want Kem's life. And you've even seen my backstory. And also the monk is just like, fine, okay. And while Kem is being strangled to death, Monk Sir interrupts again. And Ramphong is just like, listen, Monk, first you have the shaman, and then you have Kem as friends, and now you are coming in between. Like, will you people stop at nothing to protect Kem? Okay, just leave me alone, let me kill Kem, and go on with your happy lives. And Monk Sir is just like, ha, surprise twist, bitch, I am actually reborn as your dead son. And Ramphong is just like, oh, for real? Okay, yeah. So basically, to answer your question, the thing that I actually wanted was to see my son again. Since you gave me that, I think I have no reason to kill Kem anymore. So she kind of apologizes to Kem, and she is just like, okay, so I will atone for my sins and I will be reborn in the next life, hopefully to be reunited with my son. So Kem obviously doesn't forgive her that easily because Ramphong hurt these two adorable kids, okay? So Kem is just like, but I hope you live a good life. And in this scenario, Kem's mother also comes to protect him. We also have Wart, and we also have those two adorable kids come back, and we also have the granny who Paran was pretty attached to. So bonus points for that because 8 episodes of watch time actually paid off. And finally, when everything is over with Ramphong being defeated and Kem getting to live past 21 and everybody getting a peaceful ending, Kem's father, being a typical dad, is just like, बेटा लिजन नाउ रामफोंग तो तेरे पीछे नहीं पड़ी है तो अपनी डिग्री ही खत्म कर लेता और जिंदगी में तो सेटल वेटल हो जा and I do approve of Shaman because who would reject King Harith? And also, we get a very good epilogue, which is like half an hour long, and we see that Kem and Kang are married and they also have adopted 2 kids and they are living the perfect family life. Now, the banter between Kang and Namping works so well, like the dialogue exchange is flawless. Like, there is this scene where Namping is just like, okay, Shaman sir, I will get a job and I will take care of you and I will make sure that you won't have any problems in the future. And Kang is just like, brother, I have lost my powers, not my ability to move. Stop being so dramatic. And I kind of laughed at that. So it's these lines of dialogues that actually give you little morsels of warmth in this otherwise horror-filled series. Khemjira has one of the hottest lovemaking scenes, like, oh my god. Sure, it's not as good as Kinposh or Love in the Air, but for what this story is, this is a masterpiece because the lovemaking scene feels so organic and so real. And especially there is this one scene back in episode 5 or 6, I think, where you can see Kim, like the rest of us, admiring Shaman Farhan's body. And obviously, Shaman Farhan is just like, Dekh mera chehra idhar hai, idhar nahi. So, obviously, that was such a cute scene, but it was also such a sassy scene. And moments like these make Khemjira stand out so much. So, Khemjira gets in 9.5 out of 10, and I highly recommend that you guys watch this series. So, if you've made it till here, thank you so much. You've got nerves of steel. I cannot appreciate you enough for being with me till here. Do let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.